Things escalated in June 2020 when she resorted to more extreme measures. For 3 weeks, she slipped sleeping pills and other strong drugs into Fangse's food or drink. Eventually, Villafone managed to have her way with him twice. It's unclear whether Fangse was fully aware of what had happened when he woke up the next day, but he didn't express any anger afterward. Hello, and welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving back into the chilling real-life events that unfold in our world. This time, the story takes us to the town of Fonsaven, Laos. Sometimes, when life throws us unexpected twists and challenges, the best way to find peace is by turning to the Almighty. Practices like meditation, often embraced by monks, can help calm the mind and bring self-control. But is it always effective? And how does that connect to this case? What's the full story behind this intriguing situation? Stick with us as we explore it in depth. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And feel free to share this story with your friends. A quick note before we begin. This is a true story, and my intention is not to target or criticize any individual, group, religion, or organization. Some details may be altered for privacy. Let's approach this with an open mind, taking the lessons we can to stay vigilant and protect our loved ones. Now, here's the story. Meet Fangse, a young man born in 1990 in the town of Fonsaven, Laos. The youngest of 4 siblings, he was known for being quiet and reserved. His life took a turn in 2010 when his mother passed away. By then, his older siblings had all left home, moving to other cities and starting their own families. This left Fangse living alone with his father, Boon Young, a retired employee of a local peanut company. The two spent a lot of time together, with Boon Young teaching his son life lessons and hoping he'd soon find a good job, get married, and start a family of his own. But things didn't go as planned. Fangse showed no interest in college, refused to move to another city, and kept most of his thoughts and problems to himself. Then, in 2016, at the age of 26, he surprised everyone in the family with an announcement. He wanted to become a monk. After spending hours researching online, he found a monastery in Luang Prabang that he felt was the perfect place for him to meditate, serve, and dedicate himself to the Buddhist way of life. His siblings didn't see anything wrong with his decision. They compared it to Christians pursuing priesthood. Choosing to devote one's life to a higher purpose is a noble and admirable path. But for his father, the news was disappointing. Boon Young had always dreamed of seeing his youngest son succeed in a career, get married, and fill their big house with grandchildren. The announcement confirmed some of his long-held doubts. Could it be that Fangse isn't normal? He wondered. His son had never shown interest in dating, rarely went out, and had always been introverted. And now he wanted to become a monk? Still, as much as it pained him, Boon Young realized that this was what his son truly wanted. Maybe this path suited his quiet and reflective nature. With a heavy heart, he let Fangse go, watching as his son left home to begin his new life, leaving Boon Young alone. After his son left to join the monastery, 66-year-old Mr. Boon Young wasn't completely alone. He hired a household assistant, a 36-year-old widow named Villafone, to help with cooking and housework. Villafone had a child, but the child stayed in her village while she worked. Meanwhile, during his 2 years as a monk, Fangse rarely returned to Fonsaven to visit his father. Fully committed to his spiritual path, he focused on life in the monastery. He only came home 3 times, even when Mr. Boon Young was ill. But when the 2020 pandemic hit, things changed. With lockdowns and restrictions in place, including at his monastery in Luang Prabang, Fangse decided to return home. Though the circumstances weren't ideal, Mr. Boon Young tried to see the positive side, thinking it was an opportunity to reconnect with his son. Over time, Mr. Boon Young began to wonder about his son's long-term plans. "Are you going to remain a monk for life, or is this temporary?" he'd ask. But Fangse never gave a clear answer. Hoping to nudge his son toward a different path, Mr. Boon Young suggested something unconventional. He told Villafone to get close to Fangse. "Maybe you can woo him," he said. You're a widow. It wouldn't be a problem if you two fell in love and got married. I'd even like to see some grandchildren. The suggestion made Villafone uncomfortable, but she followed through. She tried subtle ways to get Fangse's attention, but her advances frustrated him, even angering him at times. Once, when she tried to grab his waistband, he pushed her away. Then, in June 2020, things took a darker turn. Villafone resorted to slipping sleeping pills and other strong drugs into Fangse's food over the course of 3 weeks. Eventually, she managed to sleep with him twice. Whether or not he was fully aware of what happened remains unclear, but he didn't express any anger afterward. During the lockdown, however, another dynamic began to emerge. Fangse started chatting more frequently with Nally, a former high school junior who lived nearby. Nally, 3 years younger than him, had recently moved back home after her company shut down during the lockdown. She found comfort in their conversations, noting how much more open and approachable Fangse had become compared to his younger years. At the time, Nally was in an unhealthy long-distance relationship with a controlling and overly possessive boyfriend. She often vented to Fangse about their fights, and he advised her, "If it's making you unhappy, it's better to let go and find peace." These chats brought Nally and Fangse closer. During the slow, monotonous lockdown days, their connection deepened. The two spent hours talking, forming a bond that grew stronger with time. Meanwhile, Villafone began to feel uneasy. She had been promised that if Fangse left the monastery, she would become his wife. She clung to the hope of inheriting land, something Mr. Boon-young had hinted at. Watching the growing closeness between Nally and Fangse only added to her frustration and anxiety. These days, it seemed like Fangse lit up every time he saw or talked to Nally. It was a noticeable change, and one that had the potential to stir up trouble. Over the next few months, however, Mr. Boon-young observed his son getting along with more than just Nally. One person who stood out was Mrs. Suknida, a 34-year-old traveling vegetable vendor who often passed by their house. She sold produce from her husband's farm or from other local farms. Suknida would frequently chat with Fangse, sharing stories about her life struggles, including her battles with controlling her emotions when dealing with her in-laws. It's worth noting that feelings of affection and comfort don't always come from looks or physical attraction. Sometimes, simply connecting through conversation, feeling understood and challenged, can spark emotions that blur the line between logic and desire. This seemed to be the case with Mrs. Suknida. Her house wasn't far from theirs, and she began inviting Fangse over when she wasn't busy and her husband wasn't around. To the neighbors, this looked innocent enough, a monk visiting homes to pray and offer advice. No one thought much of it. But over time, Fangse found himself falling for the cheerful, sweet-faced woman. By December 15, 2020, with the pandemic still ongoing, Fangse returned to the monastery in Luang Prabang to take care of some duties. He stayed for nearly 2 weeks without returning home. During his absence, things took a dramatic turn. Villafone, the housemaid, approached Mr. Boon-young with shocking news. She claimed to be pregnant with Fangse's child. She reminded him of their plan to marry her to his son and insisted it was time to make good on it. Mr. Boon-young was taken aback but reassured her not to worry. He promised to call his son back to take responsibility. However, when he contacted Fangse, the young man denied everything. He insisted he hadn't done anything wrong and planned to continue his life as a monk, dedicating himself to meditation and spiritual growth. Frustrated, his father demanded he come home immediately. He accused Fangse of acting irresponsibly, even claiming that his actions must have occurred while he was drunk. He insisted that marrying Villafone was the right thing to do and promised to cover all the expenses. For Fangse, this was devastating. He reluctantly returned home, overwhelmed by the situation. The thought of marriage meant he would have to give up his commitment to the monastery and his spiritual duties. He broke down in tears, feeling trapped and torn between his devotion to God and his father's demands. But even at home, Fangse refused to comply. He confined himself to his room, adamant that he wouldn't marry Villafone. Instead, he suggested that his father take responsibility for the situation. This enraged Mr. Boon-young, who scolded his son for being disrespectful. "Marriage isn't against your religion," he said. "It's in line with it. There's nothing sinful about getting married, so just do it." The tension between father and son only deepened, leaving the household in turmoil. Fanxei still refused to marry Villafone. Then, on January 1st, everything took another twist. Nally, the neighbor, came to the house in tears, claiming she was pregnant with Fanxei's child. She begged him to marry her immediately to avoid public disgrace. This time, Fanxei didn't argue. He apologized to his father and promised to take responsibility. He admitted he liked Nally and that their relationship had been consensual, unlike the situation with Villafone, where he had been drugged and set up. Mr. Boon-young found himself in a tough spot. On one hand, he was relieved. Nally seemed like a good match for his son, and their union would fulfill his dream of seeing Fanxei married with children. But what about Villafone? She was also pregnant. To resolve the situation, the family held a meeting and made a decision. Fanxei would marry Nally, while Mr. Boon-young would marry Villafone. At first, Villafone was furious. She had fallen for the handsome and athletic Fanxei, not his older, wrinkled father. But when Mr. Boon-young offered her financial security and promised to bring her son from the village to live with them, she eventually agreed. On February 31, 2021, both couples were officially married at the Civil Registry Office. There was no wedding reception due to the ongoing lockdown, just the necessary religious and legal documents. Shortly after, word came that the monastery imposed an unspecified punishment on Fanxei for his actions. But the drama didn't end there. On February 10, 2021, a man named Thonglith stormed into Mr. Boon-young's house in a rage. He claimed his wife, Suknida, the vegetable vendor who had grown close to Fanxei, was pregnant with Fanxei's child. This accusation baffled everyone. How could he be so sure? Suknida was married to him, after all. But then, Thonglith revealed something shocking. He was infertile. In 8 years of marriage, he had never been able to get his wife pregnant. They had even been considering IVF because doctors had confirmed that Suknida couldn't conceive naturally. So, when she suddenly turned up pregnant, his suspicions grew. After weeks of pressuring his wife, Suknida finally admitted to having an affair with Fanxei during their many life coaching and story-sharing sessions. Enraged, Thonglith felt betrayed and demanded justice. What began as a confrontation spiraled out of control. When Mr. Boon-young tried to defuse the situation and get Thonglith to leave, it escalated into a physical fight. Punches were thrown, and the chaos drew in Fanxei, who stepped in to defend his father. Things got violent fast. Villafone joined the fray, picking up a rock to threaten Thonglith. Fanxei grabbed a piece of wood, and Mr. Boon-young reached for a hammer. In the heat of the moment, the three ganged up on Thonglith, who was outnumbered and overpowered. Tragically, the 37-year-old man didn't survive the beating. Nally, panicking, called for an ambulance, but none arrived in time. Neighbors eventually helped transport Thonglith to a nearby clinic, but it was too late. He was already dead. On the other hand, it was later revealed that Suknida was devastated when she learned of her husband's death. She hadn't tried to stop Thonglith from confronting Mr. Boon-young because she was ashamed of her own actions. She feared the neighbors would discover her affair with Fanxei, the former monk. What she never expected was that her husband would lose his life in the process. In tears, Suknida confessed that she deeply regretted her relationship with Fanxei. She admitted feeling comforted and at peace whenever he came to share religious teachings, calming her restless mind. But during one of their sessions, she accidentally touched his crotch. When Fanxei responded by holding her hand, the situation escalated. She claimed it happened more than 3 times and that the encounters were unprotected, ultimately leading to her pregnancy. Her husband, Thonglith, found out about the pregnancy when he saw a test kit in the bathroom. Knowing he was infertile, he confronted her, and she initially refused to admit the truth. For nearly a month, she kept quiet until his threats to harm himself forced her to confess. According to the defense lawyer representing the family, the altercation that led to Thonglith's death was a case of self-defense. The lawyer stated that Thonglith had arrived at their house in a fit of rage, carrying a pair of sharp scissors, which he attempted to thrust at Fangse's face. In an effort to protect his son, Mr. Boon Young tried to grab the scissors, resulting in a struggle between the three men. During the scuffle, Mr. Boon Young sustained injuries from the scissors. Seeing this, Villafone quickly grabbed a stone from the front porch and struck Thonglith on the head to stop him. Neighbors witnessed parts of the fight, describing a chaotic scene with 4 people wrestling on the ground near the terrace. Nally, too frightened to intervene, screamed for help and called an ambulance and the police, but neither arrived in time. By the time the fight ended, it was too late. Thonglith had succumbed to his injuries. Because of the prolonged lockdown, the trial was delayed multiple times. It wasn't until January 6, 2022, nearly a year after the incident and following the birth of Villafone's baby, that the Fon Savan Regional High Court finally issued a verdict. The judges found Mr. Boon Young, Fangse, and Villafone guilty of second-degree assault resulting in death, though the act was ruled as self-defense. All 3 were sentenced to 12 years in prison. However, the court acknowledged mitigating factors in Villafone's case. She acted to protect her husband and stepdaughter from a direct threat and had a young baby to care for. Her sentence was reduced to 2 years. As for Nally, she was accused of being a co-conspirator but was ultimately acquitted due to lack of evidence. Looking back, it was also revealed that Suknida's pregnancy didn't progress. She suffered a miscarriage during her 3rd month, adding yet another layer of tragedy to the already tangled story. What lessons can we learn from this story?